You know, I live up in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and I'm right on a ridge. I'm just over the crest. We're at 2,860 feet, so almost 3,000 feet. We do get snow up here from time to time, but we've got really interesting weather that blows in. We're on the east side, so the clouds oftentimes come in from the coast. We drive up the top of our driveway, and on the other side we can actually see the ocean. But because of this strange weather anomaly, we oftentimes have clouds that come in and they just blow right through us. I can't really say that it's fog. It's really an interesting weather pattern, but makes things really exciting. You never know what's going to happen from day to day. I love it up here. I wouldn't trade it. Well, another day, another big tree. California, we've got some giant eucalyptus. These are the Blue Gum Eucalyptus trees, and they get really, really big. This one just so happens to be a multiple trunk tree, as does that one over there. And they can easily reach heights of 100 to 150 feet. And they're just massive, massive heavy trees. Well, this woman is very concerned because we've got branches hanging out over the road. She wants to keep it cleaned out because she likes the way it looks. But she asked me about this. She said, does this make the tree dangerous? And it's not good. It's, but I cannot say that there's anything about this that is not going to lead to a long-term problem. Is it a hazard right now? I really don't know. I know it's not good. Is it justification for removing the tree? I don't know that either. How old is this sidewalk? Were roots severed over here? Possibly. I know the road's not good for the tree. It's been here a long, long time. This tree is probably about 100 years old, as is that one. Now this tree, we were alerted to the fact that there's a hawk's nest up here, and as we were sitting here talking earlier this morning, the hawk flew in with a little mouse, so there's nesting birds up there. So we're going to stay out of that tree, with the exception of just a couple low bucket cuts and a little bit of cleanup down here, and we'll get that some other time. Well, we got our work cut out for us on this property with all the Chinese elms. She's got about a dozen of these big Chinese elms. So we're going to start with bucket work, and we got the small truck and chipper set up over here. No reduction, just end weight on some of these outside lower limbs. We've worked on these trees many, many times over the years, and no, I was not responsible for that big old cut. The base of this tree is from there to this side over here is it's about 10, maybe 12 feet. This is really interesting. Look at that. Let me see if I can zoom in on it. Have you ever heard of bird's eye maple? It's a condition that causes this pecking on the wood. So this is actually bird's eye eucalyptus, which could be valuable if you turned it into veneer, but there's not a lot of call for eucalyptus as lumber. You see all these little marks here? They show themselves all the way out, to the surface of the tree. You see it goes all the way up that way. So if somebody did remove this tree in the future, and they cut this tree circular all the way around in veneer slices, once you get down about an inch or so, this would start showing itself as really, really beautiful. But look at this. Look at the bark. This is really cool. You can see the underside of the bark there. I think that's fascinating. What causes bird's eye? Nobody knows. There's been a lot of people that have tried to figure out how to create bird's eye maple, because the value of bird's eye maple is so much higher than standard maple. You can have a maple board that might be $6 or $7 a board foot, but you call it bird's eye, and you have that kind of characteristic going through the wood itself, and the value goes $15, $20, maybe $30 a board foot, depending upon the intensity of that bird's eye. And we got the difficulty of a road to deal with today. There's a school down here, so we're kind of trying to time everything. We're doing the inside work now, and when things slow down a little bit in an hour or two, then we'll get out over the road. It's kind of hard to see here, but see if I can zoom in on it. That bird's eye goes all the way up that trunk. And you're not going to see it all the way around, just on the area where the bird's eye is. But even this tree right here has real subtle bird's eye, or this branch over here. I don't know if you have eucalyptus where you live, but in California, this is one of the giant trees that's also very difficult to deal with for a number of reasons. I was showing you a bit of the bark there, and years ago there was a huge fire up in Oakland, and it was caused primarily by the eucalyptus bark, because this shedding, exfoliating bark that comes off of the tree is an extreme fire hazard, and a lot of times you just have mountains of this stuff in groves, and it doesn't take much for it to get caught up into a fire, and you can see how it's a ladder fuel that carries it all the way up into the tree. So many of our jobs, we try to clean up some of this because it makes the tree look so much more attractive, but you never know what you're going to find when you get underneath this bark. I've had all kinds of things happen. I've had, squirrels' nests and different birds fly out at me. I've had bats. I've pulled off the bark and had bats fly out at me. So many bugs I can't even talk about. Black widow spiders and brown recluse, which are all toxic spiders. They're horrible to deal with. And sometimes you get into a species like this blue gum. And there's a fairly new insect out here called the tortoise beetle. If you look at all the leaves, you can see they're all chewed up. Almost every single giant blue gum in our area is being attacked by these tortoise beetles. 20 years ago, I never saw a tortoise beetle. And I didn't know, it's a fairly new insect to our area. I don't know what it's like in New Zealand or Australia. Have any of you guys out there in that part of the world, you got this problem? Let me know. Make a comment. So back to the bird's eye that I was talking about. This is a piece of bird's eye maple veneer. This is a piece of eucalyptus veneer. It's not quite bird's eye, but it's got close characteristics. So I went back out there after the guys finished up at the end of the day, and this is what the tree looks like, all cleaned up. You can see the bark is peeled off, and it's really a magnificent tree. And once you get the bark off of them, they're no longer a huge fire hazard. I suppose that in a big enough fire they could get caught up, but it's that tinder, that the bark that's so flammable, and it's just explosive. Frankly, I take it home in bundles and cut it up with scissors and put them in paper bags, and I use it for kindling for starting fires in my wood stove. So I got out and did some more bids, and this was kind of cool. This house is an old house. The woman had a picture of this house, and in the front yard there was an enormous deodar cedar. Situation where there's a really old house that has really significant old trees. The owner of this house says this was over 100 years old, and I believe it. And I wanted to show you this deodar cedar out here. That trunk is, gosh, it must be 6 feet across, close to 6 feet across. And it is just a magnificent tree. So I was talking to the old guy, he's 91 years old in this house, and he said that this tree was a Christmas tree by a previous owner a long time ago. It was a living Christmas tree, and now it is just a magnificent specimen. I don't see deodar cedars this large. I think this is probably the largest one I've ever seen. But what I got called on this was they've got a couple of significant valley oaks in the back here, and unfortunately somebody made a big cut. And this one's rotting all the way down. And that decay is going into the trunk here. And I can see that they probably had a beehive over here, which tells me that that rot is going all the way over to this side. And the entirety of what's left of this tree, including the mistletoe, lots of mistletoe, is growing off of a weakness. So how bad is it? Well, it's not good. I would probably want to put a probe in there and get a better evaluation. There's a bit of that whole limb right there is rotting. It's ready to fall off. This is a tough call. You definitely need some weight reduction. Some of these limbs are over the house. Anything that breaks is going to be a big problem. But this is the really significant tree that I'm concerned about. This neighbor over here called us, and they're going to be splitting the bill. I don't know what the ratio is going to be. But when you look up here, there's lots and lots of dead branches throughout the whole thing. And I advise them to wait until summertime for two reasons. We can get a bucket truck up close, but we still have to do a lot of climbing, and there's moss over the entire trunk system. It's very slippery and very wet. But really the most important reason to wait on a big tree like this is you can readily identify which branches are thriving and which branches are dying. But because you got to look through the whole tree, I've got to look for all the weaknesses. And there's a huge rot pocket down low that you can't see here, which has me very concerned. But when I get up in the tree, that's when you start finding problems. You find, cracks or old wounds that have rotted out, or weaknesses that may cause you to want to take more weight off of it. Clearly there's a lot of big limbs over the house, and most people don't like that. But these are tough. These are really tough to figure out what to do. And there's an electrical line that's actually hanging on the branches in through here. It goes all the way out. You can see it over there. It's an insulated line, but insulated lines that run through trees oftentimes get chewed on by squirrels. Now the base of this tree is just really big too. Right next to the garage. I always look around the base looking for signs of fungus or signs of decay or weaknesses or damage to the base, and fortunately I don't see anything. However, it's awfully close to the foundation, and you can see that it's pretty close to the house. It's growing extremely slow at this point. Let me see if I can show you that decay pocket. I can't see it from here, but I looked at the other yard. It's about a 24-inch diameter wound that's completely hollowed out. So the trunk of this tree is severely compromised. Then you see things like this. Now, what is that? Did something rip off of there a long time ago and tear all the way down the trunk? Was this hit by lightning? Possibility. You can see the scar all the way up there. Was it a physical injury by something that impacted it a long time ago? Possible. But whenever you see anything like that, you have to kind of start guessing at potential problems with the tree. This bulge right here, to me it looks like there was an old wound and it completely grew around it, so there may be some decay in there too. That's not normal, but you can't really see the round portion of where the wound is, so it's a guess. It's a really, really old cut, probably when that house was built. Big tree. And the next bid I've got today is a removal. Kind of sad because it's a beautiful tree, but clearly their structure means more to them than the tree. And amazingly, this is really not that old of a tree. It's probably about 60 years old or so. But look at the size of that burl butt. I mean, the trunk on this thing is just so enormous. And from here to here is easily 6 feet across, maybe more. But the trunk base comes from here all the way around. So we're looking at it's about 16 feet across on this butt here. And there's probably a lot of burl in there. But boy, the stump grind is going to be a bear. It's a big tree over a building, but I've got a good drop zone, and it does appear that the trunk has got a little bit of a lean to it in the right direction. So looks like we're going to be in for some more milling if I get the job.